Hello, Chris here, and today's episode is different. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm talking about some new equipment I have in the workshop. I'm here in the office, but I will show some video and some pictures and things as I'm talking as well, and you'll be able to see what the new equipment is. It's not the UV printer. I do have my UV printer, but there's no ink for the printer yet. Still waiting on that from the manufacturer. But in lieu of that, I was, thinking of some other things that I wanted for the workshop. And I was looking for something, and the price was good, and it's amazing. I will tell you for what the price is and for it. And this is coming from lasers, and moving to from laser to this would be a 3D printer. So if you know lasers and CNC and that, this kind of like takes away uh, material, if you want to call it, with the laser or with a tool bit, right, in a CNC. But this is building something from basically filament or plastic that's melted and then reforms into something. So I'm very new to 3D printing. I've known people who've had 3D printers and done a lot of 3D printing. So I wanted to do it because the price was right. Because it's something I wanted to move into too, for some of the structures and different things I make. It eliminates some of the assembly procedures you have to do of gluing things together. I mean, you can still have some assembly, but it lessens it. It's more of a complete product at that point. And so when I was looking for a 3D printer, I've seen a lot of the multicolor, which is pretty popular now, and now they're moving to multi-tools. But um, I was not needing multicolor so much. I mean, I saw some things that were multicolor, and I was like, interested, but I don't really need it as much yet. So because I might paint things, or do different things. So I'm not ready yet for that. I just want to, be able to print stuff and make things and understand the principles involved in the printing of 3D stuff. So started that. So I've had the 3D printer maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and started to do things. So what I start with, and you can find, um, you know, lots of models to print if you want, existing 3D models of all sorts of things from shelving to trays to boxes to, I don't know, structures, everything. If you're into different hobbies, there's everything. But but for me, I wanted to do some of my own. So I took some of the stuff I did as the laser stuff. So some of the stuff from Lightburn I took, and I use a tool called Tinkercad. Although you can use probably AutoCAD Fusion 360 or some other 3D CAD program. So I took my designs that are 2D into Tinkercad and made them 3D. So it's a very easy process, and I'm probably going to do a video on that at some point. So, but just to show you, this is just some walls that I had created for a structure that this was originally done in 3 millimeter Baltic birch or MDF, and this is PET G. So it's a 3D filament that you can use outdoors somewhat. Uh, and so I wanted to print it. This is PET G. So we'll have to glue these together type things, but that was just my first kind of initial test of how to take something in and do it. Because what you got to do in Tinkercad, if you want it to be just not pieces assembled, you have to join everything in Tinkercad, which you can do. So I'll show you. I did something of one of my, I think it's a passenger depot. It's just a little depot that I'd done in G scale or 124 scale and wood and things, and I designed. So I took out all and started assembling it. And this is a smaller version because one of the things in 3D printing is it takes a lot of time to print larger models and then space, right? So my 3D printer, the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, is 256 squared basically. So that's about 10 inches or so. So this model itself is the original, the 124 is much bigger and wouldn't print. I'd have to cut it in half to print it, and I didn't do it yet. So I just wanted to do something in a smaller size first. So this is it's a like O or S scale. It's somewhere in that scale, closer to HO maybe. It's not an actual scale. I kind of didn't scale it the way I wanted to, but it's okay just for printing and testing. And this is assembled basically. I didn't have to glue it, anything. It just prints it all in one piece. I'm going to print the rest of it at some point and then put it all together and be able to paint it. But it's cool because you can do those things, and that took a few hours, but still it eliminates all that prep, all that having to glue and make sure things are straight. And then you can, like I said, you can find things online. These are some pieces of a switcher. It's actually done, the original is 129 scale, and I scaled it down just so I could print it for testing and stuff. And this is PETG, but this green is PLA Plus by Elegoo, which I wouldn't use for outdoors, but just for test printing, that's what I was doing. And that's a model on Thingiverse, which Roger Nicholson had printed, and I know Roger from my Garden Railroad Club, as he's the president. So, and also printed some things too that I created myself. These little trays. I created a tray just for, whatever you want to put in there, keys and things, or could be wallets. And this is a smaller version of that tray. They're also created. But there's so much you can do. And like I said, you can take your 2D models and if you have, you can make it, or in Tinkercad, there's so many things you can actually design to do. And there's different filaments. So getting back to why I chose this particular 3D printer was I was looking at some of the bigger ones that were what they call bed slingers, but they're open, right? They're open. These were open, so you have to make some sort of enclosure if you want to do some of the more toxic type of filaments, I guess if you call it toxic, or like ASA, ABA. At least you need like you need closed system to really get the temperature to stable, and even this printer that I have might require more heaters and things, but it's enclosed, and I like that because it's got glass, and it's very nice. It's very well built, aluminum and metals, and a lot of good, really nicely well built little printer, and it's cheaper than, it's like half the price of a lot of the competitors' printers, and it's been going good. And multicolor, like I said, I'm not looking at that at this point, but you have Bamboo, you have all these competitors that have like the multicolor systems, and then you have more stuff to have to find room for, more stuff you have to troubleshoot. Now the Elegoo Centauri Carbon 2 is out, and it's got this big old thing on top, and so that would require more space in my workshop, and I don't know if I want to take up more space yet for that. But like I said, for entry level thing to do different small items, it's really nice. The other things I was going to look at, some of the bigger ones I looked at too, but the enclosed ones, like I said, there's not that many, and you're getting closer to 1,000 when you start to look at some of these bigger ones and nicer ones. I think at some point maybe I'd move to a Solvol SV08 Max, which is, or just the regular SV08, because you're talking about 400 millimeters. with the regular, and the max does I think 500 cubes. So those are pretty good size, can do pretty good. And these are XY core, what they call core XY Z. So basically, it can do all these. They're pretty fast. There are some faster printers around, but I think I don't know how it can print much faster. I watch this when it gets up to some of these fast speeds, and it's incredible what it can do, like without making mistakes at that speed. So it's really enjoyable. And like I said, for lasers, you can also use it to make jigs, to do all sorts of other things that you might, tools or toolboxes or whatever that you might want to use for the laser, like the whole things. And there's so many things, but coming from the laser perspective and trying to learn 3D printing takes some time. Luckily, a lot of the general settings in the slicer seem to work fine. So it's just trial and error, and just seeing what other people do. And I'm doing PETG, which when I started doing it, I had some warping, and I found that it wasn't sticking to the bed. That's one of the big things you wanted to adhere when it's printing. Or obviously, if it's not, you're going to have model move, and then everything gets messed up. So the adherence to the bed wasn't the best in the first few I did. So then I found to make the bed hotter, I think 80 degrees Celsius is what I start with now. And I also do slower. I start at a slower pace for PETG. I do 25 millimeters a second. And that seems to get the first layer, because the first layer is very important. You get that down, that sticks to the bed, and make sure that everything else stays and gets done correctly. So another thing, I have a filament dryer, and I haven't yet done too much filament drying. That's a little bit newer. The PETG, when I got it, seemed worked no problem. That didn't seem a problem. I even put it in the filament dryer, and it already had very little humidity, so that's works well. So I would recommend a filament dryer, because you never know what the filament is at. You can try without, but I would try making sure it's dry before you start using it, any of the filaments, just to get the best thing to work. And there's so much out there, so you can go and check it out and see what works best for you. But from, like I said, from the laser perspective of cutting and only doing 2D and having to glue things or put things together, or engraving and stuff, you can do, like I said, in here, you can do I wouldn't call it engraving, but you can do like sort of like an engrave effect, basically. And you can do raised letters too. You can do raised or embedded letters, and so that you can make some cool stuff. And I would recommend getting one if because in general, the price points are really good compared to lasers. Most lasers, are starting at $1,000. There's some cheaper ones, but the price point for 3D printing can be worth it, right? So that's about it. I'll put some links and some different stuff in the comments or in the description. If anything helpful. So just thanks for watching. I hope to have some videos in the future of just converting things from Lightburn into Tinkercad and then printing them and showing how that process works. But it's pretty simple. And there's so much. Tinkercad's very simple to use, so you can do a lot of things with that. So you don't have to really know an advanced CAD program at this point. But if you do want to get into more engineering and mechanical engineering, basically, type stuff, there's those programs, and most of them are free for use. So check those out, and that's all I had.